Welcome to episode 47 of Leading People with me, Jerry Murray. This episode is brought to you by Wide Circle, helping you make better talent decisions. To learn more, visit widecircle.eu. That's WIDECIRCLE.eu. How would you like to be able to consistently bring out the best in yourself and others? How could using a coach approach in your daily life bring hidden benefits? And as a coach, how could you take your coaching skills to the level of mastery? And as a leader, how could you better look out for the well-being of your people? These are just some of the many questions that we explore in this episode of Leading People. My guest is Paula King, a master coach, CEO, coach trainer, and author of the book, Becoming a Master Coach, Learn the Essential Tools, Techniques, and Approaches Used by Master Coaches to Create a Successful Coaching Practice. Our conversation is packed full of wisdom, insights, and advice. So, let's hear what Paula has to say. Paula King, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jerry. Lovely to be with you. Delighted to be here.
Great to have you today, Paula. Coming in, where are you coming in this time from? The last time we were talking, you were in the Middle East or somewhere like that.
Yeah, I've been travelling quite a bit recently. Today I'm talking to you from Andalusia in Spain, just outside Malaga. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, So we met a few years back, just pre-COVID in Brussels, and you were over here training a new generation of coaches. And then a little while back, I was having lunch with a mutual friend, James McLeod, and he mentioned to me that you'd published a book recently. And so I thought, let's get Paula on the show. Now, some of our listeners may actually know you. And then again, others may not. So for those out there who are really curious, let's just find out, how did Paula get to where you are today, running a very successful coaching company and coaching training company, training many, many coaches in Europe and far afield. So maybe just give us some sort of, how did you get here? Was there something that sort of was an epiphany moment that went, oh, I need to do this. This is my destiny and that. So just share with our listeners how you got here.
Sure. Thank you, Jerry. Well, actually, I'm from the west coast of Ireland originally, so I am a bit further afield than I would have been brought up. I had a super upbringing. I was very lucky, I know that. And I ended up quite young working in London in financial services. And this is where some of the magic started, actually, Jerry. When I was 20 years old, I met my first mentor. And anybody who's listening, I would definitely be encouraging them, look for a mentor, because that changed my life. I know that. He saw something in me. And saying I was in financial services, very young, not as young as I am now, younger than I am now, I should say to you. And predominantly leadership was men. And that's just the way it was. It's changed. We'll talk a bit about that in a moment. But it was a fantastic man. He saw something in me. And this is what a mentor does. He saw something in me I did not see in myself.
I thought you just discovered the secret to eternal youth there.
Well, it may as well be.
The way
I reversed it there.
You were getting younger as you got older.
That's true, actually. That did sound good. Oh, unfortunately, today that's not the message. Unfortunately.
Okay. So you had the mentor, and he saw something in you.
Yes, and this is what mentors do. What he did most importantly was he opened doors for me that would never been open to a young person, particularly the situation I was in. He encouraged me to network. He introduced me to people. And as a result, I got promoted very, very quickly. And that's a good and bad thing for a young person. I was a leader very fast, working in quite a complex environment, and did a lot of things that leaders do still. Took on too much, worked too hard. Looking back, was exhausted quite a lot of the time. And that's okay. But in parallel to that, I began to study areas such as psychology, counselling, psychotherapy. I'm very interested in people. You won't be surprised to hear my primary, my strength scope, curiosity. Curiosity is my primary strength. Mm-hmm. My mother would say nosy, but we won't go there. I ended up head of HR in Sussex University. And around that time, I became interested in coaching. I ended up doing a coaching program in the US with a man called Tom Leonard, who subsequently set up a company called Coach U and also was founding member for the ICF. International Coaching Federation. So great guy. Died quite young, but left a great legacy. Coaching. Coaching rocked my world, and this is the truth. I had been searching for. I'd worked with people in the space of psychology, in the space of counselling, in a voluntary basis, and carrying on the day job in HR. But coaching changed my outlook, and I think that's what happens to a lot of people when they step into the world of coaching. What was the reason for that? Well, obviously, the main reason was the total belief in the person, the total belief that they had the answer within. Other interventions presume you bring something to the table. Coaching presumes that the person sitting in front of you has that answer. What we're doing as professional coaches is unlocking that. True, of course, our skills. And the coaching world has changed a lot over the years. I'm not going to go into that today because I know that's been covered, Jerry, with other guests you've on really, really well. But it has become a very professional space to step into now, which is wonderful. And anybody listening here, I would just encourage you, if you don't know anything about coaching, go to some of the organisations' websites, International Coach Federation, European Mentoring and Coaching Council. You'll be overawed at the great work that's been done in the space of coaching. Mm-hmm. So in 2004, I set my own company up with a colleague, Kingstown College, nearly 20 years ago now, and stepped into the space of coach education. And that is an absolute honour. So in the space of coach education, I've met thousands and thousands of people as they studied coaching. And I'll tell you what, that's a great joy, because nobody comes into a coaching space and says, I want to become a coach, Paula. I don't like people. Just is not possible. So you have a gift in front of you already. A person who really wants to work in a space where they can assist people to become the best version of themselves possible. And one of the questions that I was asked regularly once a person finished their training or maybe after a few years was, is there anywhere I can go to, like a one-stop shop, where I can find information around, for example, conflict coaching or cognitive behavioural coaching or a priest of inquiry? And that's what motivated me to write the book that we were talking about earlier, Jerry, Becoming a Master Coach. And you've got it. It's quite a thick book, as you probably would testify. But my motivation was to provide a space where young coaches, people just stepped into the coaching space. I always call them young coaches, and people who are on the journey a bit longer, and people who want to refresh, where you could say, I'm going to meet a client tomorrow. Just wondering, I know that they're going to talk to me a bit about, say, for example, conflict coaching or some conflict within their team. I'll just go to the book and I'll pop through and see what tools and techniques might be useful, or to remind me what that might be useful. What questions I could ask, the priest of inquiry questions, perhaps. So that was the motivation for the book, Jerry.
Right. And so you talk about that joy of working and meeting all these people going through their coaching. And I guess as the CEO of Kingston College, you've probably trained thousands of coaches. Apart from that interest in people, what have you observed over the years that you would say, who makes a great coach? Apart from just the people interest, what other things have you noticed in terms of maybe skills or attitudes that either are there or emerge from the training? Mm-hmm.
I think for me, and it's actually, we tipped on this, you and I, in our sort of informal chat. Mm-hmm. For me, it's that space of reflective practice. That's actually vital. You know, we can go to any coach training program. We meet very intelligent people who can learn tools and techniques. No problem, of course. People who can come along and, okay, I have to listen. I have to maybe use a priest of inquiry, or I have to ask powerful questions. All wonderful and all very, very important, of course. But we don't stop as coaches after every session and reflect on what happened. You know, what happened there? What issues came up? What are my thoughts around that? Do I have any new ideas after working with my client? Every single client brings a gift to you as a coach, which is a gift of sharing a bit of who they are. So reflective practice is vital. I keep a journal. I think you mentioned you do, Jerry. I wasn't a bit surprised to hear that. I keep a reflective practice journal. I spend time before my session, really, really important, to clear my head. What's in my head right now? How are my emotions? How am I feeling? Am I feeling strong and well? Am I fit for this session? And do I need to do anything? Do I need to clear my desk? Am I ready for the session? Then stepping into the session, truly present, of course. Then after the session, taking out my book and clearing my head what actually happened there. Vital. And that's when you speak to a person, if you said to me, I met a wonderful coach and I had the pleasure of meeting them afterwards, I could guarantee you that coach would say to me, yes, I engage in effective practice.
Mm-hmm. And I guess this is one of the things that people may not anticipate when they go into the coaching training process, is that they're going to get a lot of self-reflection. It's not just go in and learn those couple of tools and techniques and practice on other people. That I think sometimes, I mean, I did a lot of work in the NLP field many years ago, and that, but people would turn up there thinking, I want to learn all this cool stuff. And then they'd find out after a day or two that actually most of it was on them. They were actually learning more about themselves than anything else. And that was where you saw the profound shifts in people, where they made that little quantum leap from, their starting point to going, I think I get this now. I can't go in and work with other people if I'm not working on myself, type of thing. Sure. And you could see those shifts and, coffee breaks and that, people going, I can't believe what's happening to me now. I'm going somewhere. So can you talk a little about that? What happens when people turn up for a coaching program with you, and you get to know them quite well, and they get to know other people. So what's that dynamic like?
And that's interesting what you said there. We don't expect that to happen. When you come into a coaching program, maybe even looking back on some of the studies in psychology I've done, etc., we come in presuming we're going to learn information. And we come in with that's happening. And as that shift starts, we can become uncomfortable. And we must become comfortable with our discomfort, which is really important. You tipped there on NLP. I'm not a practitioner in NLP myself, Jerry. I think for coaching, we bring in a lot of techniques into I would say, I don't necessarily agree with purist NLP coaching, for example. But what I do agree with is, and this is stepping into the next space when you meet a super coach, we never know it all, ever. And when I always say this in my coach training, the day you come to me and say, hey, cracked it, Paula, I know it all now, I say, this is the day to stop coaching. Because to become a really good coach, you have to do exactly what you said, step into our own discomfort about who we are. Keep learning. There are amazing growths and learnings in the world today. For example, the work of positive psychology. If anybody listening has not heard of Martin Seligman's work, fantastic for coaches, wonderful. The work in the space of neuroscience, things we never knew before as coaches. We need to understand, we don't have to become neuroscientists, but we need to understand a little about the brain, what's happening for our clients and for ourselves. So what you mentioned there, I loved it. I just imagining you in that training going, oh gosh, that's really interesting. I didn't know that about me. And the conversations, the wonderful, rich conversations you had, Jerry, in those groups. And that's exactly what happens in coach training programs. And that's the reason so many people create amazingly wonderful friendships, the richness of friendships, because they meet kindred spirits. They're sharing information with them they would have never shared before. So yes, I agree that the training shifts us. And if it did not shift us, and I would equally say this to my students, I would be very surprised. I always say in the beginning, you've walked in here a human being with your thoughts and beliefs. You will walk out the same rich human being, but your thoughts and beliefs will have shifted. And that's so important.
We used to sometimes joke, you can hang your beliefs on, there's a nice little coat hanger out there, you can hang your beliefs on that for the duration of this workshop, because they'll be there when you go back out, but who knows, you might have added to it, or they might have changed. You might take them home in a different format. It was a little bit of way of saying to people, well, just allow yourself to reflect and absorb and observe what's going on in the room, because, maybe because those beliefs may or may not be the most appropriate ones for some of the situations you're going to find yourself in in future when you go into coaching or training or something like that.
That's what you said there is beautiful, but you said something really, really important. What you gave to a person was the option of control, and the reality that they do control their thoughts. So what you're saying to me is, Paula, when you walk out the door, you do not have to take those beliefs.
No, you
can leave them there if they're no longer serving you. And that underlying message, which is a little bit NLP-ish, underlying message, which is saying you have control here. Nobody else does. You can hang your belief systems. You can walk out the door and bring new ones with you. Beautifully put.
And it also implies that they don't have to take out of the room any of the beliefs that they've been exposed to either, because they have a choice. They can choose it. What usually happens is they look at their beliefs again and go, maybe I can enhance those a little bit, or I can add to them. Yeah. So that's kind of where, without getting into the philosophies of the different approaches and that, I often say that one of the things that NLP is about, people misunderstand it, is it's actually about enhancing your model of the world rather than changing it or deleting it or saying it's wrong. It's presupposed that everybody has a functioning, working model of the world. It just may not always produce the outcomes for them in all situations, and therefore they may need to be aware of other possibilities, and that's kind of the idea. But anyway, that we're not here to debate that, because but what I wanted to get to, and I think there's a nice segue here from your continual learning, is that you call the book Becoming a Master Coach. And you're familiar with that model of unconscious incompetence, then conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. I've seen a nice version of that model which says then there's maybe another level called mastery, and it's something that you're constantly aspiring to. So when you become unconsciously competent, which will eventually happen to somebody who goes through a really good training and coaching and then practices it, then there's this concept of mastery. And anybody I know who is a master in their field will always tell you that they're never there yet. Exactly. They're constantly on a journey to you kind of, and where will it be? I don't know yet, but I'm enjoying the journey, usually is what they tell you. And they're kind of going, I think I can probably take this a little bit further. Everybody else might be looking at them going, oh my God, how do they do that? So why is, for coaches, if you talk about becoming a master coach, why is mastery as a concept important for coaches to strive towards or to think about in terms of how they go about their practice? Coming up, Paula explains why she wrote the book and what readers can get out of it. She also highlights why coaching has become the second largest growing industry in the world today, and how you can go about training as a coach, either to set up a coaching practice or if you want to bring coaching into your organization. And she has some important advice for all coaches about how to set up their coaching practice so it can be a viable business that provides them with a good income. So let's get back to our conversation.
Well, the very first thing you think of, what is a coach? What are we talking about? What are we talking about here? We're talking about a human being who's going to step into a space, a sacred space, I call it, working with another human being. And if we don't continue to fine-hone our skills, how will we be the best version of ourselves possible? It's impossible. Human beings are simple and complex. Every single client is different, and every single client teaches us something. So the day you walk into a room saying, hello, my client, I am a master. I have mastered my craft. Is the day that client is going to say something, and you sit there humbled, thinking, this is not happening. So we do strive for mastery. Of course we do. For anybody who's listening, whether they are on the journey to become a coach, whether they are coaches, whether they are they're leaders. And leadership is such an important space now with regards to coaching. Let's all continue to strive to be the best version of ourselves possible, recognizing humbly that is a life's journey. This is, it's an exciting life's journey that probably, will never stop, hopefully. It's a lifelong journey. Mm-hmm. And it's an important journey. And for anybody listening, I would definitely say to them, never judge yourself. Just allow yourself, but know that there's more there, and keep challenging yourself.
Yeah. So we both share a common nationality. It's only a coincidence. I mean, you wrote the book, and I know you. But when I grew up in Ireland, right, the concept of coaching was quite alien. It was like a fancy name for a bus, basically, and. But in the last 30 years or so, it's become a mainstream, gradually evolving and continuing to evolve, and not just in places like Ireland, but globally. Now, has the interest in coaching peaked, or are there still lots of opportunities out there for anyone wanting to become a coach? What is the future of coaching as you start to, what you're seeing emerging from your own professional practice, etc.?
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned, so Ireland is a country that is attractive for, say, multinationals, etc. We're a great country. We attract wonderful organisations. So Ireland is a small country. Within that small country, we've got a lot of different nationalities working there, a lot of complex organisations. A lot of the coaches that I've trained would work within those organisations. And the reason I would mention that to you is years ago, coaching could be quite a lonely journey. Now, if somebody steps in, say to Kingston College, we are our head office in Ireland, but our training is virtual, so we train around the world. People come to us from all over the world to do their training. And the reason I'm mentioning that is coaching is no longer a lonely journey, because if you are going to become a professional coach and you really want to get out there and be successful, you must have the International Coach Federation, for example, accreditation, or the European Mentoring Coaching Council. You must join one of these organisations. You must be in supervision. So if you step outside, and we'd say Ireland, because Ireland is where we're both from, as you said, and it's a wonderful country. If you step outside Ireland and say, I'm in Spain now, you're in Brussels, a lot of our coaches go to work in the States, work virtually. Their accreditation is recognised and they're part of an international community. That's really, really important because we support each other. Is there a space? Coaching is still, according to research, the second largest growing industry in the world today. And there's lots of reasons for that. Very few organisations, very few, do not use coaching now. And the reason that happens is the recognition that coaching and training leaders and training managers in skills of coaching, for example, assist them to have more effective dialogue. So a higher performance evolves from bringing coaching in. So yes, I do believe it's still growing. I do believe there's still space for coaches to come on. Now, what I just want to put this out there as well. Stepping into a coach training program, getting qualification in coaching is not going to get you business. And this is really important. And that's the reason people get a bit disillusioned, Jerry. They go in and do their coach training. They've got this fabulous qualification. They're thrilled. They're stepping out into this world. They're saying, here I am. Where's everybody? But you need to be also aware you're setting a business up. So I'm just saying, if you intend to become successful in coaching, you must also bring all the rest of the gifts any entrepreneur needs to bring in. And you know this, because you're an entrepreneur. We don't become successful unless we have everything else around us.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because the next thing I'd written down in my prep was I wanted to touch on the economics of coaching briefly, because you've probably seen, I mean, some coaches do extremely well. I mean, there's a few big names out there and they become quite famous, but the data I've seen published, and I suppose this is a reality check by the professional coaching bodies, suggests that some coaches can struggle financially. I mean, I have had the experience. I remember... I won't name the person, but they went through quite some difficult times there in a few years back here for some other reason. But so this person said to me one day, she said, people don't actually want coaching. They want the results that she went through a coaching program with me, and she said to me one day, she said, people don't want coaching. They don't realize what coaching can do for them until they've been through coaching, but they don't want coaching. They want the effect and the outcomes and the ability to move on in their life or achieve what they wanted to achieve. And she's not a professional coach, but she was saying, that is the challenge for a coach is how do you communicate the end benefit of coaching to people who kind of maybe not, they go, well, what's this thing about sitting with somebody and talking through stuff and that. So how do you frame that, and what advice do you give to coaches coming out of your programs around this business aspect, how to set themselves up? What business models have you seen out there that seem to work better than others? Can you talk a little, because I'm sure I've got lots of coaches listening to this, so can you talk a little bit about that?
And I'm sure they are, and I'm sure any coach who's heard us talking about this are pricking their ears up, because it's a huge question. How will I make money from this wonderful skill I've learned now that I've enjoyed so much? You said one word there again that's really important. You said communication. We can't. If you're going to have a business, we have to be realistic. If you go to university and learn to become an engineer, if you go to university to become a psychologist, it doesn't matter what you then have to find a niche. This is the most important thing. You either go into an organisation, and organisations are employing coaches now full time, and that's one area. You can. The one thing I always say to coaches: don't leave your skill set behind you. Bring it with you. All the wonderful gifts you have already, bring them with you. And then the next thing, the question is not, where can I find work? The question is, where can you add value? Where do you add value? So for anybody who's listening, what's your niche? Who are you? You have now a qualification. That's a qualification. But who are you? Where do you want to be in this world? Where do you want to position yourself? Life coaching a few years ago, for example, became the poor sister to executive coaching. Nobody wanted to be a life coach. Everybody wanted to be an executive coach. Now life coaching has come back up again. All the research is showing us that. So if your joy, and if somebody's listening, and their joy really is working with human being around their lives, how they're living their lives, and how they want to live their lives, and coming to them maybe around their relationships and what they're creating, really a huge focus just on themselves, that's fine. But that's your niche. Is that what you want to do? Then what's your brand? What's your message? So the first thing I'd say to anybody who's listening, sit down right now and write down, what is my message? And from that, you start the exercise around, where can I add value? Next step is network. I mentioned my own mentor many, many, many years ago. I've never stopped doing that since, reaching out to people, being with people. And we're afraid of networking. We hear the word, we go, oh, what does that mean? I've got to go into a room and stand up and sell. No. It means getting to know people. Join the organizations. EMCC and ICF won't give you work, but you will meet people. And you'll create bonds with people and networking with people and stakeholders who will assist you. You're the exact same. Anybody who's listening again, and this is really important because I've mentored so many people on this space, Jerry, who are so sad and down, who feel they're failures because they've done a course, they love coaching, and then they're saying, but nobody's coming to me for coaching. There are plenty of people who will come to you if you just have your message clear.
Yeah, because people who come to you, there's a very important thing here that some people miss, and that is they need to be able to trust you because they're probably going to open up a lot to you. And I see this mistake made over the years. I'm like you. I'm kind of a bit of a prolific networker, but I learned this early on, and that was don't go there to network events looking for stuff. Go there with a mindset of giving something. So people who know me out there will often, if I hear of somebody telling me something and I know of somebody else, even if they're in the room, I might say, hey, you guys maybe should have a chat, or I'll connect people by email. I don't know sometimes whether that leads to anything or not. It maybe it's a little bit of a karma belief I have, but it's kind of going, if you're shown to be helpful to people, but also, you going into coaching, it is a relationship. The person being coached has to feel that they can trust their coach, so they can open up about certain things they feel they need to open up about, and the coach needs to be able to believe and have a genuine relationship with their client, where it's not just a transaction. It's like I want this to help this person achieve whatever this person has come to me to work on, right?
Gorgeous. And that's important, the 3 C's of trust. So a client needs to trust our communication. They need to trust our character. And they need to trust our capability.
Yeah. Now, a word from one of our sponsors.
Attention professional coaches. Are you ready to unlock new streams of revenue and take your coaching practice to the next level? Introducing the Paradox Coaching Academy, where you can tap into the power of Paradox Coaching and transform your income potential. Discover how the renowned Harrison assessment tools can revolutionize your coaching approach, helping you attract high-paying clients and create substantial revenue streams. Join us at the Paradox Coaching Academy, where you'll gain exclusive access to training, expert insights, and proven strategies to maximize your earning potential as a coach. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Visit www.paradoxcoaching.co/grow to learn more and take the first step toward creating a prosperous and fulfilling coaching practice.
Now, you also mentioned the life coaching thing and the executive coaching and all this, the different business coaching and all this. I suppose one of the challenges that we faced in the world is that things get reduced down and compartmentalized, and there's this notion of work life, or and I always say to people, is it not the life work balance rather than work life balance, because it's sort of, it's very difficult to be able to, and I mean use the word difficult very deliberately here. It's difficult to separate your work from your life and your life from your work. And particularly as we've gone through the recent couple of years, where in many cases, and you and both of us today are working from our homes, right? Our lives are outside the door of this room we're in now. Well, if you wanted to compartmentalize it, but actually our lives are in this room as well, because this is part of it. But, this idea that, so I would imagine that some of this thing about life coaching is where people are questioning for themselves, am I living the life I want to live at the moment? Not whether I'm working in the right job, right?
Mm-hmm. I suppose the reason I mentioned the terminologies like life coaching and executive coaching is more around the space of our niche and where we want to be as coaches. Now, going into the space of executive coaching, of course, a human being walks into our room, not an executive.
Yeah.
A human being, metaphorically, walks into our room and sits with us. And we as coaches are trained. I would like to feel that no coach is going to sit with any human being and go, okay, so you are a CEO of an engineering company, whatever it might be. So let's talk about that. No, but we want to know about the person. We often hear in coaching that we're not interested in the past, only in the here and now and the future. But we are. We're interested in the biography of our clients. What's got them from where they are today to where they are now? And we will work in the here and now and feed it forward, but we'll also take the best of the past, what's happening for them. And going back into what you're speaking there about the human being, Jerry, of course, and that's one of the reasons even tools we use in coaching like the Wheel of Life are still very appropriate in executive coaching in order to get a sense of what's happening for our clients in their work, in their personal life, in their relationships, whatever it might be, and how is that serving them? So we do step in. You and I are here now talking about a subject we're passionate about. It doesn't mean we're going to step outside the room and talk to our loved ones about it, or maybe it does, because maybe they're not as interested, and we've other interests. So it might have our sports, or our spending time with our loved ones, or going for a walk, or looking at our own personal development. So we are not one-dimensional. No. And if we don't look after all the different sides of our lives, as we call it, something will not work, of course. You being here today and me being here today, I hope I'm not presumptuous, but it's because we're happy to be here. And it's our happy place to be in. I think we both created that for ourselves. But for example, I was just thrilled when you shared your musical talents with me. It was such a gift that you shared with me, but also it gave me an insight into you as a human being. So having a little bit, and going back to say the space of leadership, authentic leadership is all around that space. Sharing a little bit of yourself with people who are working with you. Being the human being in the workplace, being vulnerable, sharing some of what's happening in your personal life is really important to create connections.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you about the past. One of the most useful things that I've ever had clients do before we start a program together is to write me a little history of how they got to where they are.
Oh, lovely.
But what we're looking for is patterns that help them be successful. And you know what? I'd almost say down to 100%, the challenges they're facing, you see some of the pattern in the past that is contributing to it. And in a way, that self-awareness that they brought, right? By going through that reflective process. Because people take quite some time to write those little, it's only a couple of pages, but you can see them when you reflect that back to them and say, I'm hearing something that I read in your own statement. Is there something we need to pay attention to here? That person usually then goes, it's something I really feel hasn't served me as well as I would like to. For example, if it was a challenging area. So it is. Yeah, you don't want to get, maybe sometimes coaches are afraid of going into getting stuck in some sort of therapeutic type situation. But still, the person who's turned up in front of you has a history that got them there.
Yes. And that's a very common tool. It's called the autobiographical tool, I think, Jerry, coaching tool. But it's beautiful. And what a coach is actually looking for is the nuggets. It's the learnings. It's not the focus on that went wrong. It's the focus of what have we learned from that now?
Yeah.
And how can we sit here and go, okay, that wasn't something that we're particularly happy with, but how can we look at it and improve on it and then feed it forward? The priest of inquiry terminology around feeding forward.
Yeah.
So when we're creating our goals, and again, priest of inquiry is a wonderful, wonderful approach for coaches. Because if you think even of one of the principles, we move towards the images we are creating. We move towards the images we are creating. So if a client is sitting with us saying, oh, I went for that interview 3 days ago and I didn't get it and it's awful, and I just imagine myself going back into making the same mistakes. Well, we as coaches are going, you got into the interview. That's the first thing. Let's look at what went well in that interview. Let's take it in here to the present and we'll feed it forward for the next interview. So it's the nuggets we're looking for always.
Yeah. So we touched on it briefly there a few minutes back. This idea about leaders and managers embracing coaching as part of their approach to leadership. This wouldn't necessarily be that new, because if you go back to the early days of situational leadership, there was a distinction made between sort of directive or directive approach to management and supportive coaching approach to management. The only thing, of course, is that those terms got left a little bit in the ether, and the interpretation of what coaching meant could have massive variation according to who the person was in terms of the type of skills they brought to bring to it. Now, I'm hearing more and more, I talk to a lot of people in corporate world about the emerging need for a more coaching approach. You're hearing it also around the new generations coming into the workforce. And one of the things about this, I'd just like to get this angle on it a little bit, is that this also links to the well-being of the person, the manager, and the well-being of their teams, as to how that interaction goes between the people. Because when relationships, in my experience, when people are not performing well, there's a relationship problem going on somewhere between the manager and the person not performing, and they've lost the ability to communicate with each other, for example, etc. So can we maybe, in the last 10 minutes of this conversation, talk a little bit about the importance of coaching skills if you're in a management leadership role, and the impact that has on the well-being of both yourself and the people around you?
And I think, as you know, more and more in recent years, my research, my passion, my focus is all in that space of well-being, particularly in the space of leadership. And one of I suppose that there's the research being carried out by the International Coach Federation, for example, is showing that more and more we're going to have to train leaders and managers in coaching dialogue, not bringing them into an extensive program, but assisting them to reframe some of how they're asking questions, for example. And a lot of the work I'm doing now for corporate organizations is the space of mindset, the mindset of a leader, how they're approaching. And the mindset of a leader is not that different than the mindset of a coach. The mindset of a leader about being truly present, for example, about being capable of asking the right questions to bring a person to a solution, the capability of listening and listening with respect. And what's been happening in our organizations, I'm not saying in all organizations, but in quite a few, is displaying me and displaying a lot of my colleagues. But I find myself very, I suppose sad is the right word actually, around how leadership is being handled in organizations and how leaders are being supported. For example, Jerry, burnout has become a recognized term. Burnout years ago was, it's there, but not that many people are kind of experiencing it. Burnout is a huge issue in organizations now for leaders. So I won't get on my high horse too much today. Maybe it's a conversation for a different day. But burnout, we need to mind our leaders. Leaders are the people that we have viewed as the most talented. That's the reason they are where they are. They've gone up, they've stepped into rooms, into interviews, and we've said, you're the best, step in there to leadership. Now, if we are doing that, then we have to take care of those people. And well-being is not a light topic. Minding people in organizations is vital. We know this now. You said something, I hope you mind me saying this earlier before we came into this chat. You mentioned, you're finding yourself, you're tired of traveling. And things were happening. You weren't as focused. Maybe you went to the fridge, or you said something, or you dropped some milk, or whatever it might
No,
be.
I dropped the plate last.
You
I'm
dropped
just
the
back
plate.
from North America for the listeners here,
Very good.
and I'm
Yes.
trying to find my way back into my time zone and that. Now I started doing some silly things earlier, which I'm kind of going, why am I doing that?
Yeah. And that's wonderful. You see, and when you said it to me, I was thinking, I have clients who travel all over the world. We're back. You know, a lot of people are working hybrid like you and I are, but a lot of people can't do that. I'm working with a surgeon at the moment, and he's back. He's back and forth traveling. He travels to the States. He travels back to the UK. And he's an expert in his field. Now, the area of self-compassion. He ended up working with me because his wife recommended me. That's actually how we met, because she was so worried about him. He's fantastic at what he does. Now, he's not fantastic at self-compassion. He drives himself and drives himself. And he was near burnout when I met him. So we're discussing this whole point of, he can't afford to drop a plate, metaphorically speaking. That man is important. If we're going in to meet that man, we're probably meeting him because there's something happening around our bodies, and he needs to be at his best. So he needs to, but the system around him is not taking care of him. The system. And he himself, because he's so driven and so fabulous and so typical of a lot of people in leadership, he puts himself in positions without thinking because he doesn't want to ask somebody else. But they're tired, Paula. I said to him, who's supporting? My team are tired. And that I hear that all the time from leaders. The team are under pressure. I need to support them. And the leader is taking a lot of the work that they should not be taking. This is only one example. I could give you so many examples of leaders who sit with me and go, my first question always, how are you feeling today? And I used to get the Irish word, we always call it, even I know it, the word grand in some way, whether they're from Italy, they find a way to use that word, fine, well, good. And I go deeper and deeper until eventually somebody will say, I'm tired, or I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling. And when my clients get to know me, and they know when I ask that question, that I expect to hear how they're feeling. Really important. And those questions aren't being asked enough. So well-being is not a light subject. Well-being is a very serious subject.
Yeah. But I'm also involved in some... we're doing some exploratory stuff around this. I mean, we in the experiment that I've been, or it's not experiment, but in the conversations I've been involved in recently, there was an attempt to address, to deal with burnout when it has happened, and instead of preventing it. The thing is, a lot of organizations seem to be struggling. And I mean, actually, the term organizations is not really the appropriate term because there is no such thing as an organization. It's a collective of people who are not able to find a way to understand a topic well enough or agree on something because you say the system is in place, and some organizations like European institutions use the concept of hierarchy. The hierarchy has decided, and that was it. Who? Because yes, of course, we've got this collective thinking process, but I think sometimes I see what's happening in organizations and stuff keeps getting driven down. And I think the worst place almost today to be in an organization is in middle management, because you're sandwiched between stuff coming down on you and people below you not being happy. And if you're not careful, you as you say, you end up taking on too much.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yeah. And that's the reason I'm doing a PhD at the moment on emotional trauma, with the interest in transferring my learnings to coaches and to leaders, because I feel it's a space that we view as out there. It's not about me. That's counselling, or that's psychotherapy, or that's whatever it might be. But actually, looking after our emotions is really important. We're human beings. It's a conversation that needs to take place. How are you is a conversation that has to take place in organizations. Because if I am not feeling well, if I am worried, if I am feeling a bit down on myself, my reactions, we know this. I won't even go into the physiology of the whole thing, but our hearts are beating faster. Yeah. Our energy is lower. We're feeling worried. We can't address serious questions. No. If we're feeling like that. So it's important that people are taken care of. Hey, how are you getting on? human dialogue, and encouraging it. So encouraging the concept of leading from within is really important. That every person in the team, from the youngest to the top, is able to ask that same question. I'm feeling okay. How are you feeling today? And a leader can come back and say, do you know, I'm feeling a bit tired today. Do you mind if I ask you to take over a little bit of whatever it might be?
Yeah.
Because that dialogue, that culture has been encouraged.
But that's a space that needs to be available and created sometimes. And once again, I mean, it's maybe unfair at times to say you have to go up to the higher echelons of an organization and say, if you guys or ladies aren't prepared to create or encourage that space being created, everybody else feels, they don't have permission to do it. And you'd be amazed at how many people further down an organization will recognize what you just said, Paula, but they'll say, but we don't have time for that around here. They'll say, and you say, but are you making time for it?
Yeah. But if you use the time you have, you would have more time.
Yes, because that's how your brain works, right? I mean, a little bit in your science goes a long way.
Yes.
When somebody says, no, but I need to keep going for another hour, and you're saying, well, actually, diminishing returns has crept in a long time ago, and you'd be better off taking a 10-minute break, getting some fresh air, or doing something different, and you'd be amazed at how quickly you're going to save yourself half an hour or 40 minutes that you would have normally spent on this. But I cannot convince you of that until you try it out for yourself.
Lovely.
I mean,
Gorgeous.
you can't tell somebody that, but it's interesting that the frame that people have, and framing is very, very important in this, right? So the frame of reference that people have is you have to keep doing this. Now, that may not be the conversation that's going on in the boardroom. People in the boardroom may be saying we have too much burnout, we have too much absenteeism, etc. So, but the thing is, can that message infiltrate the organization that people feel comfortable enough to let go of the previous culture? Do they feel safe enough to go, actually, I can trust this new process now or not? Because I'm sure there are many, many, many leadership teams now at the very highest levels. They are not ignoring this, but is it filtering? I don't know. What's your experience of that? Because you probably have been in those conversations. In the final few minutes, Paula speaks about the need to take care of people at work, regardless of whether you have a well-being program or not. She highlights the role that having a sense of purpose plays in personal well-being and how we can adopt both double loop and triple loop learning to explore habits that no longer serve us well. She concludes with 2 valuable pieces of advice, and she has a special offer for a few lucky listeners.
I agree with you, but unfortunately, you're absolutely right. Exactly everything you said is right. We need the leaders to lead. We need the leaders to model. Of course, we always do for any initiative in an organisation. Growing up in an organisation, you're watching leaders. You're saying, how will I advance? Oh, I'll do what the leader's doing. So we need the leaders to have the dialogue. It is happening, Jerry. It is happening. A lot of very large organisations now have wellbeing initiatives. A lot of very large organisations have people who are tasked with well-being. And so it is happening slowly. And my point is that it's in the meantime, how are we going to take care of people? And it's really looking for tools, techniques, and we need purpose. I was speaking to a leader yesterday. He's got his purpose, but has a team. Does his team have purpose and meaning in their lives, in their work? We need to feel optimism and hope. We have to feel that. It's imperative as a human being to feel hope for today and for tomorrow's. It's imperative for a team member and a leader to be optimistic and hopeful. If we're not, we get very, very, we can get depressed. We need to have our belief systems need to be challenged. And I loved what you said earlier. Is that belief, will we hang that one up? Will we leave that one there? Is the belief that everybody has to work until 10 o'clock at night serving us? Is the belief that we can't go for a walk because we're sitting at home and we're feeling a bit guilty? And then actions. What actions? The empowerment, that leading from within, encouraging everybody. And that's the reason that coaching is on the increase. And that's the reason that leaders are being taught how to speak from a coaching perspective. What are we doing? How are we doing? The question.
Yeah, my experience of what you just said around this ability to ask whether a belief serves us or not, that then you have to have the question, and this is around outcomes, is for what purpose? Because you can't answer that question unless you have a sense of purpose. And with purpose also goes the ability to prioritize, because there's so many things we could do. And there's this ability to sort of step back and say, I will never get those 5 things done, right? I may only get 2 of them done. Now, one of my former colleagues who became CEO of DHL, Ken Allen, and if he's out there, good shout out to him. He had this great principle, which is, you've probably heard of this principle of my most important task to get that done in the morning. But Ken also has something he called WIN, which is what's important now. I thought it was beautiful because, you often get, oh my God, there's so much going on. But asking yourself question, what is important now? I really like that, his philosophy on this, because he was very successful. And what's important now is a great way. And actually, a team should be able to say that to each other. What is the most important thing we could be doing in the next couple of hours, regardless of all the other stuff? And that'll be a function of outcomes. It'll be a function of other people who are depending on it. It'll be a function of the time available, resources available, etc. But it's having the ability to ask such a question. And I don't.
Yes.
Maybe people out there don't do it enough.
Oh, you see, we get into these habits that are not serving us at all. We have a meeting on a Monday morning, every Monday morning, or we have a meeting every single morning, or whatever. We're never asking, what's our purpose? What's our purpose here? What are we doing here? Never challenging. There's the concept of single, double, and triple loop learning. You probably heard of that.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
The double loop learning is challenging assumptions. It's what we're doing. If we keep doing this, would it be, or should we do something different? And triple loop learning is challenging who we are, which is really, really important.
That I think emerged.
Get so busy, don't we, Jerry? Just get so busy.
That emerged, I think, from the work of Ed Schein or something. Ed Stein, what's his name? Ed Schein, yeah, in America. It's a fantastic.
It's very good for coaching.
It's fantastic for life. I mean, because we have too much technical linear approach to solving problems that are more adaptive or systemic. And if you only do single loop learning, you never learn anything about the system that's holding things in place. And as you said, you go to triple loop, and you cover it in the book. I know it's in the book, so you cover that. So
we're very impressed with you, top student.
Thank you for the marks. Anyway, coming to the end, and I hope our listeners have really enjoyed this conversation as much as I have been part of it. What final words of advice would you give to, for example, anybody who's either considering training to become a coach or wants to advance their coaching skills to master coach, or who simply wants to be coached or wants to incorporate coaching into their management or leadership style? So I give you quite a range there. What sort of last thoughts or last words of advice would you give anybody out there who's sitting there going, this coaching stuff, I'm either in it and I want to advance it because we talked about mastery, or I've thought about getting coached and I wasn't sure, but now I think I'm becoming more convinced. Or how do I do this now? I want to get it into my management style. Everybody's saying to me, you have to get it into your style. So what sort of things would you say to people they could start doing immediately after listening to this?
Okay. Well, the first thing I think is, you mentioned about coaching. I go to coaching regularly. Coaching, I could not imagine not having a coach in my life. Because what coaching does for us is it does exactly what you tipped on earlier. We stop and breathe. And that's really important. And we're with a person who's truly listening to us, but encouraging us to listen to ourselves. And that's what, it sounds ridiculous, but we don't listen to ourselves. We don't listen to the thoughts that aren't serving us, to the emotions that are disabling us, to the actions that are getting us nowhere. So I would definitely encourage anybody who's listening to us today, even if it's only for a short duration, dip into the coaching, see how it serves you. I guarantee you, once you do, you will not want to step out again. It's something I would really encourage. If you want to become a coach, of course, all the obvious. Make sure it's an accredited program. Make sure that you're going to the best. Make sure that your trainers are coaches themselves. You've heard Jerry; he's shining coaching. I wouldn't need you wouldn't need to ask Jerry, has he been trained? Because Jerry, you're talking from a space of knowledge, and that's really important. So if you're going to a coach training, make sure that that's where the people are coming from a place of knowledge of the industry. That's really important. So I would just say to anybody who's listening, this is really what I want to say. Be compassionate to yourself. That is the most important thing. Take care of yourself. Find your purpose. Find your hope. Watch your beliefs, and make sure your actions are moving you to where you want to be, being the best version of you.
Okay. Now, I guess the other thing that people are probably wondering about there is how can people get in touch with you? And I do believe that you have a special offer for our listeners if they get in touch with you in a very simple way. So,
of course, I think it's great nowadays. LinkedIn is so amazing. And my profile is on LinkedIn, and I would love to hear from people. I have lots of lovely dialogues, I have lots of lovely conversations on LinkedIn. And my email is paula@kingstowncollege.ie, but that's on the LinkedIn profile, which is equally there. And of course, the first few people I hear from, I have my book. I can pop it to you as a free offer to you. I also have there's also links on the Kingstown College website around some of the tools, techniques I've been talking about today with Jerry. So that would be free of charge. And there's other opportunities for you that I can offer you, which you might like to indulge in, if that's my word.
And I can say that you said to me you're going to send me a copy of the book, and it arrived within, I think, 24 hours or maybe 48 hours. It was fantastic service. And even whether you're a coach or whether you're thinking about it, this book will give you something, because it's a book that you can go in and out of, because it's written in such a way, Paula, that you can just go in and explore bits of it for yourself, right? Isn't that the way you've written it? Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you very much for saying that. That's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Paula, on behalf of our listeners, thanks so much for sharing your insights, tips, and wisdom with us all today.
Jerry, thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. You'll find details of what we covered in the show with links, etc. in the show notes. Please share your key takeaways from today's guest and let your friends and colleagues know about the podcast. Oh, and if there's a particular author or leading thinker you'd like me to interview, just get in touch and I'll do my best to get them on the show. This episode was brought to you by Wide Circle, helping you make better talent decisions. To learn more, visit widecircle.eu. That's WIDECIRCLE.eu. Until next time.